and welcome to Impact Africa, our online talk show where we get to have conversations with diverse people and organizations who are impacting lives positively. Yes, this is me, Kemi Akeode Adebayo, aka Mama K. In today's program, I've got my dear sister, wise, hardworking, a devoted wife, a loving mother, Tamara Maweni. She's an highly skilled professional accountant based in Cape Town, South Africa. My dear sister Tamara, how are you this morning?
I'm well, thanks, Kemi. Thank you for having me here.
You're most welcome. Tamara is a name for me I'm not familiar with. Where is the name from? Where were you born? What was life growing up?
My name is actually derived from the Bible, from Tamar in the Bible, one of David's daughters.
Okay.
I think a rough translation would be a palm tree, which is beauty, new life and so on. I was born in Umtata and I was raised in East London in the Eastern Cape here in South Africa. And yeah, I just was raised by my grandparents, both of which were entrepreneurs. And I went through school in East London, and then from there I went to University of Cape Town to do my BCom accounting, and then I was in Cape Town until today.
Right. I'm going to rewind a little bit. I know you went through that life journey very quickly. Born in Mthatha, live. So what's your position in your family, and what was life growing up for you in Mthatha before you came to Cape Town?
Okay, so basically I was born in Umtata. My mom was a civil servant at the time. She was a nurse, and back in those days, if you were a single woman and you were a civil servant and pregnant, you got fired because they assumed that you probably cheated with somebody's husband or something like that. And then so basically my birth was a controversy in that my mom had to hide that she was pregnant with me, and
You're joking.
Yeah, and she had to give birth to me secretly. Then my dad's parents,
because she was a civil servant and a single mother.
Yes. Wow. So my dad's family decided to take me in. At that time my dad was still young as well, so my grandmother took me in as a own. So I grew up thinking my grandparents were actually my parents.
Your parents? Wow,
yeah.
That must have been tough. Well, tough and fun as well, because I bet as grandparents, did they spoil you? No, they didn't. No. So they really treated you like their children.
Sometimes I used to look at my other cousin and think, I could have had that life. But no, my grandmother was just like, nope, you're my daughter and that's it, and that's how I'm going to raise you.
Okay.
So I never felt any different. It wasn't like I was being raised by grandparents. I was being raised by my parents.
But you used to see your mother, I'm sure, maybe holidays?
No, actually.
Okay.
Because of what happened, I thought my grandparents were my parents, and then once she heard that, she didn't want to come and disrupt the peace.
Right.
So she did come around once, but I mean, after that, she didn't come again, and I didn't even know who she was when she was there. I only realized later. So it's things like that, yeah.
Right. And your grandparents were entrepreneurs in Umtata?
In East London.
In East London. Yeah. Okay. Wow. So what were they doing? What were they selling? They ran
a shop, a supermarket. They ran motor spares as well. They had a shell garage as well as a few farms.
Wow. That was a lot of businesses. So were you involved in that?
I was always in the car whenever we do anything. So people used to call me like my grandmother's handbag, pretty much, because
so
I was literally with her, because I mean, they couldn't leave me alone at home and they had weird hours. So it was only when I was about 12 that they could just leave me at home and stuff, because then I knew how to cook by then and I could do everything, my homework and all of that at home. Yeah.
How did you end up in Cape Town?
Cape Town. So when I was...
And at UCT specifically?
Yeah. When I was 11 or 12, I used to come here to visit my cousins. So one day we were driving in the Rondebosch area and I asked them, what's that? And they were like, oh, that's the University of Cape Town. And I mean, I looked at this university in the mountain and I was like, that's where I want to be when I'm done with high
school. At that age, at 11 or 12, you said, well, okay.
Yeah. And
confidence.
I think by then I had already changed schools, because I had realized that in the school that I was in, I was like number 1 or number 2 for the most part, and I realized that it wasn't as challenging as it should be. So I asked my grandmother, can I move to Bedhurst School? And I moved to Clarendon Girls Primary School, and then went on to their high school.
Wow, that is unusual as well for a child that young to ask a mother or grandmother, at that time, that I don't like my school, I want to change. And she listened.
Yeah, she did, because I'd moved already probably one or two schools by then. I started out in the township in like lower primary and stuff, and then...
And you felt you were not challenged enough education?
I mean, I was floating. I listened in class and I never did any homework, and I still got straight A. So I felt like maybe I needed a little bit of more of a challenge.
You knew that?
I got bored easily. So I knew the minute that I'm bored, then it's not as challenging as it should be. Because, you see other people going through school and they're like pushing and they're studying, and you're like, okay, I'm not even doing half of what you're doing. So then by the time I got to Clarendon, that's when I felt the challenge. That's when I felt that, okay, now I can start pushing. Now I can start doing more. And there were more opportunities, there were more societies, there was more extramural activities. So I think it was a better choice for me. Even at that young, I was able to make that choice, and I'm happy that I did, because I thoroughly enjoyed my primary and high school years.
That's awesome. And the fact that your grandmother listened, and because it must have been a little bit tough taking you from, I don't know, in terms of transportation or whatever else, that needed to be arranged, or even believing in you that, okay, yeah, this girl really feels she's not challenged enough. Let me move her, because she could have child talking.
It helped that my younger cousins were in the same. So there's a girl and a boys' school, so they were already in the same school system. So then it was a little bit easier for my uncle to say, okay, I've got an extra child in our family. Can she come in?
Awesome.
So that was an easy
transfer. Made it easy. Okay, wow. So then you went to University of Cape Town, and why? What did you study? I know what you did. I already introduced you as an accountant. So why accounting?
I loved numbers.
Okay.
Later on, I realized I didn't like people that much, but...
You shouldn't be saying that publicly. All your friends will be like, no, you don't like people. No, but I know what you mean. Okay,
so I love numbers. I'm a what you call an introvert extrovert.
Right.
So I can pretend to be an extrovert when I need to be in social situations, but more often than not, I'm more of an introvert. I'm more into myself. I'm more an observer than an actual, talkative person. So being an accountant with numbers, I could find the missing numbers, I could balance things. And for me, in primary and high school, accounting was easy. Once I got the concept, it was easy for me to implement. And then varsity was a whole different story, because when you learn the theory behind everything, it's different. But that's essentially why I wanted to be an accountant.
So, and you got into the University of Cape Town. How many years was that?
It was 4 years that I was there.
Was that a BSc or
it was a
BCom?
It was a BCom. On what was supposed to be my final year, which was my third year, my grandmother passed away. So then I had to do an extra year, because...
So she didn't see you graduate?
She did not see me graduate, unfortunately.
That must have been tough for you.
But I mean, my grandfather was still there, and the rest of my family was still there. So it was still special. And we did a whole graduation celebration at home, and she was there in spirit. So
I'm sure, because she must have really, really worked hard to see you even, following your dreams and doing what you wanted to do. Correct. So 4 years, like you said, it wasn't easier in the university. Not like the primary and secondary where you were cruising. I'm bored. So
so the first year was a shocker. I think even when you have your first few lectures, they tell you a third of you will be left by the time you guys finish this degree. So I mean, university is not easy. Even though some people were floating through high school, the minute they got to university, it was a whole different language. It's like trying to learn a new language. I find that the South African education system sometimes does let us down a little bit, because the way we are taught, it's more spoon-fed than actually pushing us to, you know, research our own things and get on to a higher level of understanding. And I found that my Zim, the Zim students were doing much better.
Right.
Because for them, the first year of university is sort of like a repeat because they've done A-levels. So I think because of that, I had quite a few Zim friends. And because I chose to do maths, they helped me a lot, and I really appreciated that. So
that's awesome.
I mean, I was one of those people who would meet people and just click with them and then just carry on. So I made a lot of friends in UCT, and I learned quite a few languages.
As well?
Yeah.
You know what? We'll come back to hear more about that. We'll be right back. Tamara, meaning beauty, and you're such a beautiful lady. Your journey, born in Mthatha, grew up in Eastern Cape, came to Cape Town, brought up by your grandparents because of the issue at that time with your mom being a single mother, working in the civil service. And then this young 11-year-old child deciding, okay, I like that building, University of Cape Town, this is where I want to go to, change schools, top 3 students in your classes, sailing through, went through university, a different ball game. Like you said, introvert, extrovert. I like that, you know, bit of you where you said, you know, you have a little bit. So what, am I mixed as well?
No, you're totally extrovert.
No, you tell me. Okay, so now you basically did your 4 years in the university, corporate world. You've been in that field, although now you're kind of on a different journey. But before we go into that, how was corporate world for you? What were some of the challenges, you know, for you as a young black accountant in a profession that it's still, I don't know, it's still not an area that a young black women, and you're a woman as well, join. So how has that been for you?
It was tough in the beginning because, I mean, you enter this corporate world, you obviously underpaid than your white counterparts, whether they're male or female. I think the one experience that stood out to me, because my name was Tamara, and my surname is Yako, which is YAKO. So some people assumed I was Chinese, Japanese type of thing. So I would talk to clients on the phone, and then the one day, the one client actually came to the office and said, "Oh, I'd actually like to physically meet Tamara." And then they called me. Then the minute he saw that it was a young black female, like you could see his whole face changed, because in his hearing, he thought that I was
a different person,
a different race.
A different race, because the name, the accent properly as well. Okay.
So, because I've got a very neutral accent, you know, most people on the phone, they don't know whether I'm black or white. So after that, like you could see that he was not impressed, and he actually wanted to change his accountants. And
really? And then what happened?
No, I just met him and then I carried on. But I mean, for me, it was more...
No, you wanted to change, but he didn't get his way.
Look, the partners normally oversee everything, and they do the meetings with the clients. So he didn't have to directly interact with me, except when I was asking for information. Okay. So he couldn't change because, number one, most of us on the floor, which were trainees, we were mostly black. So there was like,
way to go. But experiencing that in this day, well, I'm sure some years back, but still, you know.
It was Cape Town at the time. The black people were not looked upon as professional people. It was almost like most people had that thing of stay in your lane, you're not supposed to be here, and type of thing. So you'd find that most black professionals would move to a Joburg, of which I didn't want to do that. I liked staying in Cape Town, and I was like, you know what, as much as racism is rife, especially in the corporate world, I'll push through and I'll get through it. And for me, having that encounter was more a reflection of him and his unwillingness to move on, and his unwillingness to open his mind to the new way that South Africa was changing into.
And you didn't let that bother you.
I didn't
you
let
still
that.
did your work professionally, and you focus on that. But it's just so sad, to hear that. Is that still on right now, do you think? Or
it is, especially if you go into the wealth space.
Right.
So where you have your wealth in your investments, your people who handle like your millions and stuff. So still the clients are not willing to entrust their millions to a black professional versus a white one, especially Cape Townians, I find.
And how do we change that? Or how can we change that?
You can't change it drastically.
So it's a gradual step.
It's a gradual step, and then I think people, that old generation needs to get used to the new way of life, because I mean, it's like having black students.
And more black professional women as well maybe need to be encouraged and empowered to have that confidence, not to say, okay, Cape Town is not working for me.
Let me
go
run
to
Joburg. Yeah.
So maybe that, that part of it needs to happen as well.
Look, I'm seeing at this day and age more of your young professionals moving to Cape Town.
Right. Okay.
So I think the dynamic is changing in Cape Town, where it was majority your white professionals will come here, but because of BEE and all of those things, you're finding that it's becoming a mix. So gradually Cape Town is becoming a mix of different races and different nationalities as well, who are going into the professional field. So those things are not just limited to just South Africans. You're seeing nationalities all over, from all over the continent as well as some of the European counterparts. So these are the things that are gradually happening in Cape Town. So
before we go for a break again now, what are you mostly proud of, for you? Maybe share an experience, something that you've achieved along the way in the corporate world as a professional accountant.
I think I've always stayed true to myself. And I've always fought for equality and treating people with respect, regardless of whether it be race or whether it be gender. My thing is, everybody deserves that little bit of respect, and it's an easy thing to do. And as an individual, if you stick to your principles and stick to who you are and don't change yourself to conform to others, then you're gonna go a long way. Because if you change yourself all the time to conform to others, you will lose who you are in the end, and that's not a way to live.
Right. Okay, we'll be right back. Mara, life in the corporate world, obviously you've had to face challenges, and I'm sure there's been really fun part of, you impacting lives, there through your work, like you said, in terms of fighting for equality in terms of race or gender, and some of the experience you've had to face or facing them, face on, and not allowing anyone to because you I don't know, let's not go there. You have so much wisdom. That's one thing I know, in terms of you know how to navigate yourself, and that is shown growing up, in terms of your education and how you managed to get your school changed, alone on that. So life lessons for you. I want you to share some of what life lessons has been, in terms of what you've experienced, what to avoid. What can help a younger Tamara who will come from the Eastern Cape to say, what, I want to come to Cape Town, or I want to go to London, or anywhere else that they feel they want to, find out, how life is. So what has been some of the life lessons for
One
you?
of my, the things
Or
that
anyone thinking of doing accounting as well, who likes numbers?
True. One of the things in the corporate world that I've had to face was minding people's language. Because sometimes people don't realize they disrespect women with simple things. Like the one day I was in a lift and this guy was telling us about his weekend, and he kept referring to girls as chicks. And I said, excuse me, but we are women. We're not little chickens. So you can't call women chicks and think the rest of us will be okay with that. So even correcting small things like that goes a long way to garnering respect for women across the corporate world, because how people refer to us in the personal and in the off work time somehow infiltrates into the work time, because then they'll start calling you a chick during a meeting. So it's small things like that. The one other lessons that I learned is, once you have a dream, follow it.
Right.
Chase that dream and do everything you can in order to get that dream. For me, it's always, I find when you're not learning anything and you're stuck in a comfort zone, that's the most dangerous place to be. Because in life you need to continually learn, not necessarily formal education, but sometimes through the people around you. So also the people that you surround yourself with, are they growing you or are they keeping you at a lower pace? And also I'd like to just let younger people be careful of the friends you have, because some of them aren't there to encourage you to be a better you. They're there to make sure that you stay at a lower level than they are, so that they can keep bragging to you about, oh, I went on this holiday, and so forth. So pick up on the little cues with the friends you have, and sometimes it's okay to let some people go. And it applies as well with family. Sometimes you just have to let some family members go because they drag you down. So just be careful of small things like that, because they can go a long way to preventing you from being the person God set you out to be.
Okay, wow. So we've spoken a lot about gender, equality especially. And I know, a lot of women keep still facing a lot of bias and challenges in the corporate world. What do you think more can be done, to help to break those biases for women or young girls?
I think both men and women need to call it out. And say it as it is. I'm a very direct person. I won't go by the by. I'll just say it as it is. If I see it happening, you obviously will find a very professional way to say that actually you're being biased towards me because I'm a woman. Whereas my counterpart, for example, a John, is getting further ahead, and you ask those questions and you ask your corporate, because sometimes corporates will have that idea that as women, once we have kids, we tend to stop working. So then they don't feel that they should...
Even your brain, they believe that your brain stops working.
Exactly. And then they feel that they can't invest as much in you as your male counterparts. So those are the things, the social things that we need to address, that if you pick it up in your organization, question it.
Right.
Either you've got nothing to lose, question it. And you never know, you might be the one person who changes your whole ethos of your corporate structure. So those are the things you need to question.
Okay. So what social issues for you are you passionate, about, even if you're able to do something about it or not? What are the solutions, or one social issue? I don't know. Is there any social issue for you, and what are the solutions?
I don't know if it's a social issue. It's more of, I want people to believe that they can be more than what their environments are. I mean, so many people are raised in the townships, and then they are stuck in this whole thing of, I'll never amount to something, or even if they try something new, because nobody in their community has tried that something new, then everybody's just like, you're just dreaming, it's never gonna happen. For me, I want people to just have confidence in their dreams, confidence in the things that they believe in, and take a leap of faith and trust God, that God will be there for you. And even if people around you are saying nay, you have nothing to lose. You'll never know unless you try. The worst thing you can do is fail, and from failure you can always learn and know that, no, this path is not maybe what I need to do. Maybe I need to take a different direction. But for me, I want to encourage people to just follow your dream, push yourself, learn. It doesn't have to be a formal education. Not everybody can afford a tertiary institution. But it can be a life lessons, because most successful millionaires out there don't necessarily have a formal education. They just went with their gut, and then they just continued to push through and succeed. And they went on to hire the graduates instead of being the graduate themselves. So that's something people...
You're quite right. And I think sometimes education is very, very good, and I'm a believer in education. However, I think where we're missing it of late, and what I'm hearing from the young people as well, is that the formal education is not necessarily the only way.
Yes.
Plus, our curriculum at the moment in the schools, especially primary and high school, they're not relevant to some extent anymore. It's more about studying and, as we say in my country, Nigeria, cramming.
Yeah, no, I know exactly.
And
regurgitating things.
That's all. So when it now comes to the practical, things of where you now go, okay, what we studied, what does it really, really mean? You can't really come up and say, but if you ask me Pythagoras theory, blah, 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 I can probably recite it. But
how do you practically apply that?
Practically apply it.
Correct.
And I think that's where we need to speak more to our governments as well. They need to start looking into the curriculum, amending it to the now.
To be more relevant, because for me, even in high school history, I couldn't, because I didn't understand what was the benefit of me knowing when Jan van Riebeeck landed in South Africa. For me, that's why I enjoyed subjects like accounting, because you had to logically think as to, okay, this is the process. For every debit, there's a credit. So there was a logical way in how that worked. Even with mathematics, you had to solve for X. So there always was a logical way to come to an answer. And there was more than one way to answer the same question. So I think people don't necessarily have that logical way to solve problems, and that sometimes hinders them from progressing. And I think that's where sometimes people fail, because they're so used to cramming and regurgitating that they're not thinking about the process and thinking about what is the logical thing to do in certain situations. And life is practical. You have to be logical at some times. Fine, we're emotional half the time, but the logical thinking and the way of processing things is what's needed in order for you to get to succeed, pretty much.
Wow. What an insightful conversation I've had, and learning more about you. And I hope, as well, for our viewers out there that, especially the young Black women, not forgetting the men as well. I'm a mother of 2 boys, so, and you're a mother of a boy as well. So people don't think, they're always talking about girl, child. I still believe more still needs to be done for the girl child, even though we don't want to leave the boy child, behind. Especially for me now with, personally, I don't know, with what I see in the world with family values, marriages, abuse. We need to speak to our men, more, because things are falling apart in that area as well. So we need to do more. So I want to just say thank you for all you're doing. You've been a judge at our talent shows as well. You're one of our directors at Bold Moves, and you've supported, us, in terms of what we're doing in the township and for communities, for women. And we look forward to, more of that, you impacting lives more, because you're already doing that. The lives as well, through your faith. We didn't even go into that, what you've done, in the past through, your church and just blessing others, So I hope you don't get tired. I hope you don't give up.
Not.
And supporting your husband as well as an a creative artist, you know, in that line, because that is essential. And I think that's what we want to showcase, you know, through programs like this. So I celebrate you, I salute you, I honor you, and thank you for the time that you've given us. So you should be proud of yourself, and we're looking forward to you. I'm not going to ask you, mentoring some of our young girls from the township. So I'm not going to ask whether you're going to do, because I always ask our guests, but you don't have a choice. You're going to do it. Anyway, we just need to work with you on how that happens. So because I believe we need to mentor more.
We definitely do.
You know, in whatever form, formally, informally, one-off, long-term, short-term. So we will be back to pair you with a young girl to mentor.
No Look, Mama Kay, that's how we impart knowledge to kids. Because as I said, formal education is not for everybody.
Yes.
And if you are an experienced professional, you have the skills to help somebody who's just starting out, who's just got a dream and they don't know how to follow that dream. And it's simple things, it's simple suggestions, and you know, the little that we do will go a long way in the future, because you don't know if that girl child or that male child that you're mentoring will grow up to be something in the future, and you would have played an integral part of that.
So in closing, I want you to just share a few words with anyone you want to share with, whether girl child, boy child, youth, mamas, anyone you want to speak to, grandparents, I don't know, whoever you want to speak to, just to share a few words to them directly. So in closing, if you could just do that.
Thank you, Mama Kay. I would just like to just say to all the young professionals out there, you are our beacon of hope. You are there to show the light to the many children who don't have the same opportunities that you do. And I think through mentorship, you guys can pair up with a girl or a little boy, even through the times of high school, because I find that most of these children make the biggest mistakes in choosing their subjects in high school, especially during grade 9. I think that where we can play the biggest impact is at that young age, where we can inspire them so that they can learn that there's a lot of professions out there. Even in the accounting field, there's not just the CA options, there's the professional accountant, there's the management accountant, there's the financial management. So it's all of these things that we need to just, as professionals, go out there, empower kids, because I was privileged in that my school had a guidance class, a guidance room where you could find all this information. For some schools, they don't have those kind of funds, and we can act as the guidance counselor and actually impart some of the knowledge that we've learned through our years of experience. So my thing to young professionals out there, go back to your communities, go back to impoverished communities if you were privileged enough to be raised somewhere else, and just spread that light. Do talks in schools. A little bit of information will go a long way for those kids. And to the young kids out there, I know sometimes it can be tough. You're faced with either going to school or finding a job to support your family. And I just want you to just believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, and find time for your dreams, because sometimes with the social responsibilities that you guys have, even as young as you are, it's sometimes easy to forget that, look, I had a dream to become a pilot, per se. Or I had a dream to start my own business. But what I want you to do is I want you to just always keep that dream alive. Chase your dreams so that you can become the success that you want to be, so that you can be proud of your own self, actually, even before others are proud of you. Be careful of who you surround yourself with, because sometimes the people around you can be the people who either raise you up to be who you need to be, or they can tear you down, so that you just stop believing in yourself and stop believing in the abilities that you were gifted by God. And lastly, I want you to know that even through dark times, just keep in mind that everything is okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. And you can just push through until it is okay, and that until you surface and you're like, wow, that was a trial of fire, but I made it. So just continue to believe in yourself, continue to love yourself, because you're the first person who can love yourself so that others can love you too. So just always believe in yourself, empower yourself, learn from others around you, and even learn from the people who do wrong things, so that you know, okay, that is wrong. and I shouldn't follow that example, and that's something that can push you to be greater. So always keep an open mind and always push through and just be the best you that you can be. Thank you.
Whoo! You're making me write and write and write. I'm like, oh, this lady. Because I love writing. I know some people are like, she's old school. Yes, I am. I love if it's not okay, it's not the end. Yeah. I love that phrase. And chase your dream. Mm-hmm. Believe in yourself. Follow your dreams. Wow, there was just so much packed there. Beacon of hope.
Yes, we are.
I love that. Empower, impact knowledge, spread the light. Wow. Tamara Maweni, thank you for your time, and we wish you all the best. We will be back to have more insightful conversations and to learn, from you, and to see how you're doing as well, and to follow your journey as well in terms of your doing. And by the way, I love that hairstyle. You're showing off now for some of us who are shut hair. Almost going bald completely. But in fact, no. I need to do a program on alopecia because that's what I have. So I'm going to do that someday. But then I'm going to feature people like you with beautiful hair, can cut your hair, grow it, cut, grow. That's another program. Okay, I'm being told time is run out. But thank you for your time. Stay blessed, and we'll be back again to have more conversations.
Definitely.
Right. Well, that's all we've got time for. We're signing off. This is Impact Africa with Mama K. Remember, God is love. Stay blessed. We hope you've been impacted in one way or learned, something from what our dear sister Tamara shared there. And if you need to go back to it, you know what to do. Just play and replace, available on demand anytime, like all our other programs on YouTube or Facebook. So till next time, stay safe, stay blessed. Love you all.
you.